Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Veterans Point of View. Again, my name is Mario, and I am your host. Guys, I have something to bring to your attention today. I think a lot of us have a tendency of not looking at a lot of these Senate committees. There is a committee that's actually set up just for veterans itself. I believe it's called the Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs. This one is actually run by two chair people. The chairman is Senator Moran from Kansas. He is the chairman, along with Senator Blumenthal from Connecticut. These two gentlemen have a tendency of taking a lot of a lot of questions regarding veterans issues, especially nowadays that we have the government shutdown, how this is affecting our veterans and getting services and all that good stuff. Well, guys, I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to pretty much explain to you some of the things that really upset me about this particular situation or this committee. This committee was basically, or this hearing was pretty much set up so they can troubleshoot some issues that are out there regarding providing benefits for and services for our veterans. And in some cases, it became something that was, I believe it was kind of taken out of proportion. And a lot of it had to do with an article that was done by the Washington Post regarding veterans and veterans who are abusing of the system. They're saying, and I'll play the video. You guys can actually find it on YouTube. It says it's on the Washington Post channel, and it says how these veterans are exploiting the VA disability system. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about that because I know pretty much all of us, especially those that have retired, are accepting some sort of disability. And in some cases, I think all of us, especially all of us who have served for long periods of time, for myself, I served 23 years. But it doesn't matter whether you serve a year, 6 months, or whatever the case may be. I really feel that civilians have no concept of what dangers and what things we are exposed to. So I'm going to play you guys an audio clip of this video, and you guys will hear the nonsense of this video and how it sounds so ridiculous and their claims that they're doing.
Public image of a disabled veteran is someone who's been wounded in combat while serving their country. And I think the public really isn't aware of the extent to which the disability compensation program is being exploited and taken advantage of.
People who say they need the government to pay them for a disability that they don't really have.
He said that after serving his country in the military, he could no longer use his hands or his feet.
Collected hundreds of thousands of dollars until they were caught on hidden camera.
Video of him in the wheelchair.
The Post started reporting on this story more than a year ago because we had noticed a clear trend, an explosion in the number of disability applications to the VA.
I think what the power of those are when they're together.
We wanted to find out, why is there this explosion in claims? Some of it obviously are the wars in the Middle East, but beyond that, what's driving it? We've gone through tens of thousands of pages of court documents, reports, investigations. We've talked to dozens of veterans, officials in the VA, current and former.
The system is vulnerable to manipulation.
People who were themselves investigated for disability fraud. The vast majority of disabilities that the VA is paying veterans compensation for are conditions that are not ones that in the public mind are associated with disabled vets. Things like jock itch, hair loss,
Hemorrhoids, in shaving bumps, scars.
migraines. There's more than 900 ailments or conditions that the VA will pay disability for. Sleep apnea, erectile dysfunction. VA is not going to check whether they really have it. So it's an easy way to game the system. When VA does open a criminal investigation into suspicion of fraud, they really only do that in two scenarios. One is if they can prove in black and white that the person's lying. One of the patterns of cases we found were people claiming to be blind when they can see just fine. There was one guy who kept claiming he was blind, but posting photos and videos on social media showing himself out hunting and snorkeling. Veterans can claim to be wheelchair bound or housebound or infirm. They can't get around.
Do you still drive? No.
But yet on video, the VA often finds that these people are out doing all sorts of normal activities that are completely incompatible with what they're claiming. These cases are really striking because you see with your own eyes the degree to which people are faking it, but it's only these extreme examples are the ones that get caught.
All right, guys. So that's kind of a quick clip of the video. Now, I know a lot of you guys are going to be upset just by listening to these people discuss some of the elements that a lot of us do claim on disability. So jockage is a major thing within the military. It's not an aspect of just claiming it for the sake of claiming it. I mean, especially a lot of us that, are in the field for long periods of time, where there's times where you're not able to conduct as good personal hygiene as you can. These things do happen. The other thing that they talk about is erectile dysfunction. Well, if you really stop and think about it, if you are somebody who has PTSD, what do you think are some of the things that are going to affect you? Not being able to function properly is definitely one of them. Sleep apnea. Now, I know that there's some sort of relation between PTSD and sleep apnea. Now, they are not, in some cases, related to each other, but in many ways they do coincide with each other. What was another one? Migraines. I mean, honestly, to this day, I still get migraines all the time, especially on light, like very bright days and stuff like that. If you ever been near an IED or got blown the hell up by a mortar, a rocket, or an IED, of course you're going to have these kind of things. Even just being exposed to it, because the concussion itself has a tendency of affecting your brain. And this is something that most civilians would never understand, because especially these folks in the Washington Post live in a very cushy, nice area where they live in office, and they have never been exposed to any of the aspects of military service. And this is the thing that really upsets me, is that you have people like the Washington Post, folks that have never served, but yet they're out there, trying to say that veterans are creating fraudulent disability claims. And yes, are there bad apples in every group? Absolutely. We all know that there's bad apples in every group. There are some people that are going to try to manipulate the system for their gain and for whatever purposes that they may have. But that's the reason why we have investigators. And in all honesty, if you're somebody who's smart enough to know how the government works, why in the hell would you want to do some sort of fraudulent stuff? And that's the thing that that most of these civilians don't understand. Stop and think about it. The only person that actually gets concerned when they get extra pay in their bank account is a veteran. Why? Because most likely DFAS made some sort of mistake, and eventually it's going to catch up, and you're going to have to pay it back, right? So in reality, I think I think that's one aspect that I think civilians don't know is that a lot of us been exposed to a lot of crazy stuff, man, and it has a tendency of affecting you as you get older. Man, and this particular hearing that they did on October 29th. You guys are more than welcome to look for it. If you go to veterans.center.gov slash 2025 slash 10, says putting in veterans first, you'll see the video. You can also see it on YouTube. It's about an hour and a half long video, and it talks about a lot of the challenges that we have within the VA system. I mean, we don't have enough mental health personnel to help all of our veterans with PTSD. We don't have enough participating doctors to be able to take care of all of our veterans, especially if they want to do community care. There's a lot of things that we all know that there's an issue with the VA system. We all know it because most likely most of you who are listening to this or maybe have a loved one that is a veteran and has to go through the VA healthcare system. Believe me, it's a mess. It is not by any way there to help us in any kind of way. In many ways, we feel like we go through more red tape because of it. I would also say that it did not come to light until that whole incident that happened in Arizona, where there was a couple of veterans that died because they were waiting to get medical help from the VA hospital in Phoenix. Until that day happened, people have been opening their eyes on how bad the VA medical system is. And in many cases, it's sad to think that instead of being put first, and especially we're the folks that pretty much serve our country and defended the rights of every American that's in this country. We have a tendency of being put last. Sorry. I'll give you guys a quick example of that. My local VA clinic. We have been trying to open a new VA clinic, and to make a long story short, the area that it was going to be donated to ended up creating all kinds of red tape because they were saying that there will be some sort of environmental hazard because there's a endangered species which is called the kit fox, and how this was going to affect their livelihood or where they can actually live. And all sorts of other red tape fiascos that ended up happening because of this. So to make a long story short, it took almost 12 years for us to finally get the go-ahead to start construction on a new VA clinic in Bakersfield, California. You guys can look it up. Believe me, it is ridiculous. And I'm sure this happens in pretty much every other community where, and I'm not saying that all communities are very anti-veteran, but, there's definitely some that are not really putting in their efforts into making it a better place for veterans and trying to understand, the challenges that we deal with on an everyday basis. Many of us who have PTSD, who have a traumatic brain injury, we have a hard time trying to transition into to the civilian world after leaving the military. In my case, I was a retired soldier. I did 23 years in the Army. And I'm a combat vet. I had a really hell of a time trying to integrate myself and transition into the civilian world. I ended up pretty much quitting 4 jobs because I just felt like a lot of these people didn't really understood me or really care. I really felt like they cared about me. And it got to a point that, I might end up hurting somebody. I might end up putting myself in jail. And, it's not worth it. And that's just a quick example of how bad things sometimes can get for transition veterans. I mean, luckily for me, finally, I found an employer that really appreciates what I do. I really have an ownership on what I'm doing, and I think that definitely helps. So, with that being said, I'm gonna talk. I'm gonna have. I'm gonna show you guys the. Show you. I mean, I'm gonna let you guys listen to this. This opening entrance or opening intro for one of the committee members that went to this hearing. There was quite a few of them there. There is a veteran from. Let me see. There's the Honorable Cheryl Mason, who's the Inspector General of the Department of Affairs. There is Jerry Villanueva, which is an Associate Legislative Director of Paralyzed Veterans of America. John Retzer, who's a Deputy and National Legislative Director of Disabled American Veterans. The person you're going to hear right now, his name is Ryan Gallucci. He is an Executive Director for the BFW. And you the other soundbite that I have for you, it's Daniel Gade, who has a PhD. He's a retired lieutenant colonel. And you guys are going to hear two different sides of how people really feel about us. And in many ways, and it's sad because, Dr. Gade is retired lieutenant colonel, somebody, and you guys are hear his testimony. I mean, this dude is an actual disabled vet. But instead of trying to help his own, he's actually going against them, which is sad. And I, and the last one is Elizabeth Curta, who was the director, education, workforce, and income security issues with the Government Accountability Office. So we're not going to listen to all of them. We're just going to listen to two of the opening statements. One is Ryan Gallucci, who's the executive director of the BFW. I really like what he said. I think a lot of the things that he said, I think a lot of us could definitely relate with. And obviously, I'm going to let you guys listen to Dr. Gade, who pretty much fucking destroyed everything about veteran services and what this is all about. And what really upsets me about all this, guys, is that there's a trend that's going on lately in this world. And I don't know if you guys are seeing it, but I am definitely seeing it. And there's this anti-veteran sentiment that's going around. This has been going on forever, man. I remember way back in the day when we had what was this guy's name? I think it's Paul Ryan. He was the secretary. No, he was the Speaker of the House way back in the day, and he says something to me that to this day really upset me. And he basically said that veterans who have done 20 years of service do not deserve a pension. That you are young enough to go out there and find another job and start another career. But then I started thinking about, this man has never served in uniform, has never sacrificed the way a lot of us have, and has never put himself in harm's way. So how in the hell can you, the third person in line to be president of the United States, say some stupid shit like that? You know what I'm saying? And this anti-veteran sentiment has been continuously going. It's something I've been noticing lately even more, especially after the government shut down and a lot of the freeloaders not getting what they need to get. All the welfare recipients, all the food stamp recipients going out there on Twitter or X, whatever the hell you want to call that thing, and going out there and saying, oh, I'm going to go and get in and get a card at Walmart and just going to walk out with all this stuff because I need to feed my children and people need to, support me and support my children. And I'm like, nobody supported me. I'm sure nobody supported any of my audiences. All of you guys had to work hard for the things that you do get. And it just bugs me that all these freeloaders and all these politicians and all these other people that feel that veterans are freeloading out of the system. Anything and everything that we get, we've earned, man. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's not a visible wound or a visible wound or not, a lot of us have sacrificed, especially a lot of us, our fellow veterans who are Vietnam veterans, Desert Storm veterans, all of our GWAT veterans, a lot of us have done a lot for our country, and Ryan Gallucci, I think he pretty much says it exactly how a lot of us would say it. So I'll let you guys hear that.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of the VFW. When Americans raise their right hand, they sign a binding contract to surrender freedoms, obey orders, and if called, march into combat. In return, our nation promises care and benefits. That promise is not charity, it's a contract. For our enlistees, it's enshrined in DD Form 4. Every veteran who served honorably has kept their end of that contract. Yet lately, headlines question whether our veterans really deserve it. The Washington Post, The Economist, and others have said that benefits are absurdly generous, that fraud is rampant, or suggest that a disability industrial complex of VSOs profits off the system. We've heard it before. In the 1930s, when the Economy Act slashed benefits, at the recommendation of Archibald Roosevelt, and in the 1950s, when Omar Bradley chaired a commission that tried to strip benefits from the less disabled and questioned toxic exposure. We buried those bad ideas then, and it is our duty to bury those bad ideas today. Fraud exists in large systems, Medicare, Social Security, and yes, VA, but it's rare and it's prosecuted when it's found. What's not rare are the invisible wounds of war, PTSD, traumatic brain injury, chronic pain, or cancers caused by toxic exposure. To claim these wounds are embellished or fake is either ignorant or cruel. Invisible does not mean imaginary. Reporting like the Post's misrepresents key facts. They tell readers that more than 500,000 veterans are service-connected for seemingly minor skin conditions, failing to note that 76% of these veterans are rated at 0%. If you add in 10% ratings, which often do not affect compensation, that number jumps to nearly 94%. The data set does not support rampant exaggeration and fraud. Plus, the Post conveniently ignores the unique occupational hazards of military service and why skin and foot conditions are so common. There's a reason it's called trench foot. It is easier to claim benefits in 2025, but this is a feature, not a flaw. Reforms like the PACT Act leveled the playing field for those poisoned by burn pits and toxics and other toxins. We fought deliberately to improve access because past generations have suffered in silence. PTSD claims have drastically risen in recent years, but it's naive to think PTSD is new. Past conflicts labeled it soldier's heart or shell shock, and it was a condition we tried to hide. Today, veterans talk about mental health because it's okay to have PTSD and it's okay to claim your benefits. Because we talk about it, veterans are fighting stigma for all Americans. The cost may seem jarring, but this is the sobering true cost of 2 wars many households could afford to overlook. Disability compensation is the settlement of a debt for the social and occupational losses associated with the real and persistent hazards of military service. A paycheck doesn't erase a missing limb, and a steady job doesn't cure a damaged lung. The all-volunteer force understands that military service is dangerous. We choose to serve because service is authentic and necessary. And in our contracts, the United States committed to make us whole when we were ordered to combat or other hazardous situations. Unfortunately, perverse incentives exist, such as concurrent receipt kicking in at 50% disability, or family care that kicks in at 100%. Bad policy can drive bad behavior, but Congress should fix the policy and not blame the veteran. On fraud, let's talk about claim sharks, who often promise benefit increases by submitting questionable evidence for a hefty and illegal cut of the action. The VFW has led the fight against this scourge, not to profit, but to support veterans and protect the non-adversarial benefit process. The VFW has testified before Congress 15 times over the last 3 years, raising this alarm. We've had countless conversations with the committee seeking to stop the fleecing of veterans and taxpayers, but our calls have gone unheeded, and we're now targets of the Washington Post, accusing VSOs of embellishing. Our accredited representatives are bound by strict ethics regulations in 38 CFR. We tell veterans what they need to know, not what they want to hear. And we invited the VA General Counsel to audit our training in 2021, an offer that still stands 4 years later. It costs VFW and our partners tens of millions of dollars each year to provide this service because every veteran deserves an honest advocate, not a profiteer. Our veterans didn't ask what was in the air they breathed or the water they drank, and unlike many other public servants, they can't just walk away if they don't want to do it anymore. We serve in accordance with the contract we signed, and many now live with the illnesses that steal their sleep, breath, and ability to work. Suggesting they embellish their suffering for some money is insulting. The VA system must work better. Simpler forms, improved access to exams, and reliable technology. But veterans and their VSOs are not the problem. We appear before Congress dozens of times every year asking for some nuanced reforms that sometimes come to fruition, other times don't. And as we speak, the government shutdown disrupts our work as critical deadlines approach. Veterans can't afford to wait. We must reopen the government to avoid unnecessary pain and hardship for our defenders. Members of the committee, the all-volunteer forces carried this nation through the last quarter century of war. We kept our promise. Now the nation must keep its word. It's time for all of us to honor the contract. Thank you, and I look forward to answering any questions the committee may have.
All right. So, how many of you guys agree with what he just said? Because I'll be honest with you, everything he said, it is exactly what all of us would think about our service. And it is sad to think that people think that we are frauding the system, when in reality, man, the system's already has a lot of flaws. And there's a lot of flaws because the VA, how many of you guys ever had to do a claim online or in front of a BSO or BFW or VA office? How many, if and there's very handful of you. Okay. So I'm going to tell you guys all something. Questions. And then, it is sad that we're having to go through this stuff, that people are thinking that we are frauding the system, that somehow, VSOs are frauding the system. Now, I encourage each and every one of you to get involved in your veteran services clubs or memberships or whatever you want to call it. All right. I am a junior vice commander for my BFW post 108.59. And I become very active in the leadership aspect of my post, and I'm very proud of what I've done. I think in the 2 years that I've started in that post, for me to become a junior vice commander, it's been an honor, and I'm really happy that I've been able to give him that opportunity because I really want to serve my fellow veterans and be able to give something back to them. When it comes to the VSOs and all that, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, how many of you guys know of some bloodsucking lawyer that's telling you that's going to help you with your VA claim, but they want a percentage of it? That in itself, it's fraud, and you should never take money away from veterans. I mean, in very few cases, I really feel you need a lawyer. That's if you have like a, if you have fraudulent stuff and you're going to a court, I could see you need a lawyer for that. But for applying for benefits, no. I mean, in all honesty, guys, I submitted all of my claims all by myself. I did it all myself. Now, mind you, it helps that, I did 23 years in the Army, and at the same time, I was also an administrator towards the end of my career. So, I was very familiar with the government forms and how everything's done. I'll be doing another podcast regarding how to submit for VA claim disability at a later time. I think there's definitely needs to be more information for that. I really feel that most of you guys can do that yourself. You really don't need a VSO. And I'll be talking a little bit more about, being able to get access to your medical records, because I think sometimes that is where the problem lies. So, yes, there are flaws within our system. We all know that. There are flaws in every system, and there is fraud within every other system. But like I was telling you guys, I really feel that in many cases, you won't see that much fraud with veterans. And the reason why is because many of us know how the government works. And the last thing we want is to have some suit come into our house, knocking on our door and saying, hey, we need to talk, or we need to bring you in for questioning. That's the last damn thing I want, And I really feel that, that's something that especially people like in the Washington Post really don't stop and think about it. Now, if you guys get a chance to watch that video, it's actually on YouTube. It's on the Washington Post thing, and it says how these veterans are exploiting the VA disability system. Yes, there are people that are frauding the VA disability system. And I think a lot of you guys, especially if you you came out of deployment and stuff like that. I don't know if you guys ever ran into this one Yahoo, but we had this one guy that had like knee braces and all kinds of stuff. And he started talking to us about our VA disability benefits and how, hey, most of you guys can probably get 100% if you do X, Y, Z and all that. Yes, I get it. We've all heard it. We've all heard it. But in many cases, you still have to prove your case with the VA, man. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's something that, especially journalists from the Washington Post are not going to understand that shit. There are certain things you can get away with, but there are certain things you can't. I mean, honestly, when they do a physical on you, it's very extensive. I've never had a physical, not even in MAPS when I first joined the military, like it was when I did my my disability physical. I mean, that thing was the most detailed thing ever, man. I mean, I had so many freaking X-rays done on me. I had a couple MRIs done. I had a EKG done. I mean, honestly, I kind of felt abused after I did that damn thing, man. I was kind of questioning whether I should do this or not. But, I'm just telling you guys this because in reality, man, they're very thorough about doing examinations. They want to make sure that whatever you're claiming that is legit. It's not some BS. And I think that's something that, you're not, the Washington Post definitely is not understanding, and they definitely don't get, that aspect of it. But, they are civilians. They are, in many ways, especially the Washington Post, they're all about getting ratings. And, if you guys know anything about the history of the Washington Post, the Washington Post has done some stories that in many ways are basically lying, but they put it in a way that they're making it seem like they're legit, but in many cases they don't have enough stuff to prove it. And it's all about ratings, guys. You guys got to understand the Washington Post is all about getting people to read their freaking newspaper or watch their YouTube videos or whatever the case may be. But it does become very insulting, and it does really upset you to the point that you wonder, like, damn, are these people, do these people really appreciate what they have? Because, especially being in Washington, D.C. and being around all that military, man, you got Arlington over there and all that. You would think that they would appreciate things even more, but I guess not. So, guys, I'm going to share with you the audio clip of the other speaker, which was Dr. Gade. He is a retired lieutenant colonel, and you guys are going to hear a different side of how he feels about disability for veterans.
My testimony will differ from most you've heard. I'm a member of no veteran service organization and have no motive other than to help restore the lives and dignity of millions of veterans. For too long, you've been told that the best way to care for veterans is to shovel billions of taxpayer dollars into their pockets. This approach has resulted in a veteran class that is sicker, more marginally employed, and more suicidal than ever. By paying veterans to be sick, we create more sick veterans, separated from meaningful lives of purpose, and we deepen our suicide crisis. I developed this perspective through hard experience and long study. I was wounded in combat twice, losing my right leg and spending a year at Walter Reed. After recovery, I earned a master's degree and joined the White House Domestic Policy Council, where my previously acquired user-level experience was bolstered by my work alongside both the Joel Shalala Commission and the Scott Commission. I later completed a PhD in public policy focused on the VA claims process, and while teaching at West Point, co-led the Independence Project, a randomized control trial demonstrating the powerful link between employment and health. In 2021, I published Wounding Warriors, How Bad Policy is Making Veterans Sicker and Poorer, and recently served 2 years as Virginia's Commissioner of Veteran Services. The surge in disability claims is not due to combat injuries, but to a culture that rewards illness. Last year alone, over 450,000 new compensation recipients entered the system, while total combat wounded from the global war on terror number around 50,000. Last year, more than 270,000 veterans began receiving compensation for tinnitus, which is 100 times the number of GWAT amputees over a 20-year period. Blessedly high survival rates from combat wounds are not the cause of the growth. This lie allows advocates to tuck every veteran disability claim under a cloak of virtue. Instead, the avalanche of claims is driven by nonprofits and pay-to-play claims companies that encourage veterans to selectively exaggerate or falsify symptoms to, quote, grab all they can, end quote. Aging, genetic, and lifestyle conditions are increasingly labeled service-connected, resulting in tens or hundreds of thousands of veterans rated as 100% disabled who have no true incapacity or whose incapacity would have eventuated regardless of service status. I propose 2 principles of reform. 1, meaningful employment is powerful medicine. A 2020 paper called Employment a, quote, critical mental health intervention. Unfortunately, veteran participation in the labor market, especially among men in prime working years, is markedly lower than their civilian counterparts and has been steadily declining over the past 20 years. Disability compensation discourages work by rewarding inactivity. Some programs, like IU, create a direct barrier to work. Any separation from the labor force causes isolation, malaise, and reduced income, coupled with a demand for ever higher disability payments. We should shift dollars from paying veterans to be sick towards meaningful incentives for gaining and maintaining productive employment. Early positive incentives can have a long-lasting positive effect, as demonstrated by the Independence Project. 2, disability compensation is a destructive goal. Disability is a negative word. In Latin, dis means not, opposite of, or apart. The disability compensation system pulls veterans into a destructive identity as, quote, disabled veteran, rather than helping create a positive, forward-looking life and career. This system is anti-thriving, anti-productivity, and ultimately anti-veteran. Further, it discourages future generations serving by painting veterans as a troubled problem class. The compensation system traps veterans into a disability identity, teaching them to chase 100% rating as a proof of honor or source of validation. 9 of the top 10 conditions for newly rated veterans are easily exaggerated or totally unverifiable. We need a system that affirms veterans' capacity to thrive, not their presumed fragility. Here are several steps that would protect the integrity of the system. 1, treat but do not compensate for non-disabling conditions and eliminate conditions caused by genetics, aging, or lifestyle from the compensation rolls. Sleep apnea is one obvious example. There are hundreds of others. 2, require active treatment for compensated mental health conditions. If compensation is warranted, so is care. 3, extend VA medical eligibility to all service-connected conditions without tying it to disability ratings, removing an incentive for false claims. The current disability system robs veterans of purpose and dignity, trapping them in idleness and despair. Further, the isolation brought on by separation from the labor market can and does send many veterans into a morass of tragic consequences. Reform will be difficult. Entrenched interests protect the status quo, but it is essential. A close look at past changes shows that what survives the legislative and rulemaking process are usually additions to existing programs or the creation of new programs. The VA budget grows inexorably despite the system causing immense ongoing harm. Deep structural reform will save lives and restore what veterans truly need: meaning, work, and hope. And to Senator Tuberville, I say, War Eagle.
All right, so that was Dr. Gade. Now, there are some things that I do tend to understand where he's coming from. One of the things that he talks about is the, grab all that you can mentality. And that's usually these kind of yahoos that are in the, that are actually being hired by a lot of these companies to make sure that veterans get as much as they can while at the same time profiting from it. That is sad. And in many cases, there's a lot of that. I do agree with that. The other thing that he says is that we shouldn't compensate for treatable ailments. I don't understand what you consider treatable. I mean, if you have, let's say you have sleep apnea, you're going to tell me that you're going to just give me a CPAP machine and that's all I'm going to get. In some cases, look, guys, I'm telling you from my experience. All right. I've had a CPAP for the past 5 years. You know what I'm saying? And to me, it's something I can't live without. I got to have it. Is it treatable? No. I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I could probably lose like 50 pounds and that'd be great for me. But at the same time, I still feel that no matter what, I'm still going to have a sleep apnea. The other thing that he talks about was regarding work, like meaningful employment for veterans. The biggest problem is that there are no programs that are meaningfully able to get every veteran to have meaningful employment. I agree that if veterans would have an employer that actually cares about them and wants them to succeed, I guarantee you that most of them would be successful. I can tell you I'm pretty much the poster boy for that. But it took me 5 tries to find that employer. You're not always going to find that employer, and that's the biggest problem. A lot of companies, although they said that they're pro-veteran and they want to hire veterans, many of them are passed over because of the word disability. You know what I'm saying? And I know that he talks about that in some cases, they look at the word disable and then they feel like that person can't do what they need to be doing. And it got to a point for me that when I started applying for jobs, I never mentioned that I was a disabled veteran until I was actually hired, because I did not want the stigma going against me. And I know in many cases I got in trouble with HR because they told me, hey, look, you should have disclosed this, or whatever the case may be. But then my answer is like, were you giving me the job if I would have put that? And I actually had one of the HR managers tell me, oh, probably not. Okay, so there's a reason why. There is a stigma with the word disability. And so there are some valid points that he talks about, and there's some things that he says, that a veteran can definitely claim, and somehow, some way that it's going to be considered as valid. But I mean, how do you assess erectile dysfunction unless you send that person to urologist, and have them do some sort of assessment? That's going to be an expensive type of study in order for you to say that they don't have that, or if they have prolonged jungle rot on their freaking feet, or or jock itch or whatever the case may be, or they have a serious skin irritation because in many cases they didn't get a chance to go shower because they were doing 30, 40-day field problems, or being out in a small little forward observation base in the middle of nowhere, and you have no way of taking like a really good bath, you know? I mean, these are all things that, you know, we can debate, you know, and in many cases, nobody's going to win. This is not really going to improve anything, to be honest with you. I think in order for us to really fix the VA system, it has to be easier for the actual veteran to put in a claim. Now, why even use a VSO? By the way, a VSO is a very what is it? A VSO is basically somebody who helps you with your claim. Some sort of guy that's been certified by the VA or that veterans organization, and they know the ins and outs of the VA disability claiming system. So that's who that VSO is. So it was called Veterans Support Officer or something like that. I don't recall. But anyways, guys, you guys know what I'm talking about here. Biggest thing with all this, guys, is that I feel that now we are going against the veteran. We are looking at this and like, hey, you know what? If we got to start cutting SNAP and we got to start cutting food stamps and all this crap, then all these veterans need to stop getting all their freeloading crap. When in reality, nobody's freeloaded anybody. You know, we paid for our dues, man. We did what we had to do. We got exposed to things that nobody's ever been exposed to. I mean, to be honest with you, to this day, I still have issues with my lungs out there, you know, deploying 3 times to Iraq and having to smell the damn freaking those fire pits that were all over the damn place, burn pits everywhere, man. It's like, you know, they don't stop and think about all that stuff, man. You know, they don't stop and think about all the other stuff that we're exposed to. I mean, think about how many of us, especially those that were part of the global war on terrorism, how many of us have the anthrax shot? Pretty much majority of us, because in many cases, if we refused it, we would get an Article 15. We would get in trouble with a chain of command, and it create all kinds of problems. I knew guys that got Article 15s because they didn't want to do the shots. But now, all of a sudden, we're starting to see this trend of many veterans who were part of the global war on terrorism and had anthrax shots dying from heart-related issues. You know, recently I lost a third person from my first deployment that died from heart-related situations. They had heart attacks and died. And it makes you wonder, like, what the hell is it that we were exposed to that we don't know? You know? So, only time will tell on this matter. But I really feel that veterans and all of us who love veterans and care about them, we need to be more informed about these kind of things, like these committees, like the U.S. Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs. We need to know more about the Senate Arms Committee. You know, we need to get more involved. I think a lot of us need to really start looking at what the Senate is doing, especially when it comes to the U.S. Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs. I think a lot of you guys should just check that out once a week, man, and see if there's anything new there. Because if there's anything new, then it's something you guys can really get yourself involved in. Let your other folks, like your other people in your veteran community know, hey, you know what? These people are going after our benefits. They're trying to question what we did for our country. And that to me is dishonorable, is disgusting, and we definitely should not be having hearings questioning veterans whether, you know, their disability claims are legit or not. Pretty sad. But these are the times we live in nowadays. So it's one of those things we have to kind of keep an eye on for it. So I want to thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and I hope that you got something out of it. I hope that it kind of opened up your eyes to, you know, what's really going on within our government and whether these people really do care about their veterans. I always feel that action speaks louder than words, man. You know, they really do. And when we start seeing these type of people that are kind of going against us, I think it's something that we need to, one, expose them and let the rest of the nation know what the hell's going on. Because you guys got to know something. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of people in our nation, our country, that love veterans, that appreciate their liberties. They appreciate all the stuff that we do for them. And in many cases, they're not really notified of these kind of things that are happening. And to be honest with you, if more people were involved, things would change, and it would change for the better. We definitely need to change the VA medical system. We definitely need to fix the compensation and benefits system. And we definitely need to stop getting away from attacking our veterans for their hard-earned benefits. All right, guys, that's all I got. Like always, God bless you. God bless the United States of America, and I'm out.